Are you tired of struggling with follow-up? Do you want to stand out from the crowd but find it difficult to do so in a convenient and easy way? Look no further than Send Out Cards. With Send Out Cards, you can easily stay in touch with those who matter most, celebrate important events, and stay top of mind with just a few clicks on your computer or taps on your phone. In today's world of overflowing inboxes and empty mailboxes, Send Out Cards provides a personal touch that people truly appreciate. Don't get lost in the sea of technology. Go old school with Send Out Cards. Check out the link in the show notes to send your first card free on me or visit momgeek.com/cards. Welcome to Gratitude Geek, the relationship marketing podcast helping DIY marketers find your micro-influencer magic so you attract raving fans and repeat buyers. I'm your host, Kandas Rodarte, and this week I'm joined by happiness expert Anthony Poponi. So Anthony is passionate about spreading joy in our workplaces and communities. He is the CEO and founder of Focus on the 40, offering programs and resources which specialize in reducing suffering and increasing happiness in the workplace. He's also an energetic professional speaker and workplace consultant who knows how to captivate his audience and leave them buzzing with excitement. Anthony's workshops and presentations are designed to empower and inspire his audience to take focused action towards creating a more joyful and fulfilling life. Whether you're struggling with work-related stress or looking to improve the overall happiness of your team, Anthony has the knowledge and expertise to help you achieve your goals. So get ready to learn some valuable insights and tips from one of the best happiness experts out there. Let's get into it. Welcome.
Hey, thank you. I feel welcome.
So tell us your story. How'd you become the happiness expert?
Oh, how much time do we have? How many episodes are we doing together on this? Because I could take a week.
You can come back later.
All right, good.
Okay.
Well, I've always had attention-seeking behavior, and so an opportunity to be in front of crowds was. I was like, "Oh, are you telling me people will pay me to stand in front of people and entertain them?" Yeah, sure. Let's talk. Let's learn about that. So, but it's always been a role. I mean, all joking aside, it's always been a role where I've like forever people have said, "Hey, we need someone to give a presentation on this," and it started out primarily for me in the realm of science, and that's why I like positive psychology as a foundation for what I do, because it's science based, and it was giving presentations on sea turtles. Like I was like, oh, telling me to go entertain some people and tell them some stuff about science. But I can do that. That's easy. And that's evolved over time until like somebody asked me to be an auctioneer for a fundraiser at one point, and I was like, sure, I can help you raise money for an animal welfare society. By the way, what's auctioneering? And so they were like, go make fun of your friends and get money out of it. And I was like, oh, okay, I can do that. So it's been this evolution of like playing around with it, and then just kind of saying one day, like, why? I've seen other people doing this from stage, and I bet I could be that good at it. And I think I would really love it. And so I started investing in it.
All right, I want to talk about the science of happiness.
Sure.
Tell me about it.
Well, that's a pretty wide open question.
I know.
Good.
Do whatever you want with that question.
Whatever I want. I'm going to make a snowflake angel out of a piece of paper, and then let's see. Now, what I really want to talk about. It's a robust science, and so it's been around since the late 90s. Dr. Martin Seligman was sort of one of the founding people behind it, and he gathered a bunch of really awesome people to start researching and putting the same level of clinical research and application that we would normally apply to psychology. When there's positive psychology, and that's like for people above zero, which is about 80% of us in the United States at least. And then most of psychology to that point had been focused on people that were suffering, that were dealing with depression or dealing with anxiety issues, and people that were just in really dark and hard places. And they were working on creating tools and understandings and assessments to help those people. And he said, well, what if we did that for the other 80% of society that was just looking to live a happy, fulfilling, and what he calls a flourishing life? And so they started to build up all of these pieces and then put the same level of rigor and scientific study to it. And so I love it. I mean, I stumbled into it and was like, oh, like this is the thing. This is the thing that I want to be sharing with the world.
So what scientifically makes a person happy, and what is the research telling us?
Well, I would say broadly that the research will tell us that what makes you happy is really different from what makes me happy. And that's okay.
Darn tootin'.
Yeah, darn tootin', right? Although I do like Star Wars and I see it in your background, so that's great. But I think really what they came out with was the well-being theory that breaks happiness down into 5 parts, and it's an acronym. As in all scientific realms, they have their own acronyms, and it's PERMA, PERMA, and this is kind of like the 5 domains of human well-being. And P is positive emotion. We should be able to trigger more of that in our lives. We should be able to understand where it comes from, understand that it's also fleeting, that positive emotions come and go, and that's okay. Engagement in life is about like going deep and getting into flow state, and like recognizing that that always doesn't necessarily feel good in the moment. It feels really good in retrospect, being like, oh, I just like tackled this really hard thing. I just really grew my skills and abilities, and it felt good to do that. The R in the PERMA model is relationships, so it's about like having life enhancing relationships and providing life enhancing relationships to other people. There's reciprocity to that. That's important. And then M is meaning. It's about meaning, purpose, being other focused, serving other folks. And A is achievements, about moving forward. And, for a lot of these things, I frame them as like, some of them are hard. Some of those parts of happiness are actually hard. They don't necessarily feel good at the time, and that's okay. You should still lean into those things.
I want to go back to what you were talking about, being in the flow state.
Mm-hmm.
And you said that you can't necessarily tell it's a good thing when it's happening.
Yeah, I would say, flow state is, it can be, you can lose track of time. So whatever the thing is that, like for me, I'm constantly learning to play guitar. And I'm always starting back at zero, it feels like, and when you start it, it doesn't feel good. And for me, I'm like, set a timer for 15 minutes, just like for 15. When the timer goes off, if you're hating it, you can stop. By the time the timer goes off, I'm loving it. I'm happy I'm doing it. And I'm struggling with it, And so flow state is like this, there's this, they call it like a flow channel. And so there's 2 axes. One is the x-axis would be, if you envision that as like skills and abilities. And then the y-axis is the challenge in front of you. So let's keep with the playing a guitar, like if I'm playing a guitar, my abilities are really low, which they currently are. Then I'm playing along and I'm playing a Pearl Jam song and I'm singing along to it and I'm missing some notes and I'm not playing things perfect. My timing's not great. But over time, I'm going to build the skills with practice to kind of grow that and get better and better and better at it. And then as my abilities have grown, well, I don't want to just keep playing the same song over and over. My brain gets tired of it. It gets apathetic. Like there's no value for it anymore. It doesn't feel good. So now I work on playing a different style of song or a different type of music. I've grown my abilities.
The snarky me, snarky Candace wants to say, "Oh, that's jazz music.
Candace.
That's jazz music."
Yeah. Jazz music is incredibly hard, right? And I make jokes all the time about not liking jam bands. And it's mostly, I'm like, listen, I'm from New Jersey originally, back when I left when I was 17 in 1990. And I was raised on hair bands. I need my music to be delivered to me in 2.5 to 3 minute long songs on the radio. They need to have repeating chorus, lyrics that I can get. The messages don't need to be deep.
Dude, jam band. Not the kind of music I like at all.
I've been on a Motley Crue fix lately. I live in Bend, Oregon, and I'm on the board of directors for the Boys and Girls Club, and we're hosting an adult 80s prom. And so I've been listening to 80s music again, and I started to get back on hair bands. Not that it's like my passion anymore.
Okay, can we just go down this well? Because music makes people happy.
Going. Yeah, sure.
So when I want to listen to music, I want to listen to English new wave from the 80s, like English Beat, The Cure, The Smiths. That's what I want to hear, right? Yeah. And when I say, Siri, or not Siri, but my Fire Stick, when I tell it that I want to listen to British music from the 80s British, it always plays rock and roll, like rock songs. I'm like, no, that's not what I want.
That's because the algorithm gets more money off of playing those tracks for you.
Is that what it is?
I have no idea. I made that up.
I'm an episode, my favorite band in the 80s was The Cure. I like those really long, drawn out, depressing songs.
I've come around to that stuff. I'm like, I feel like I'm being pigeonholed into Anthony stuck in the 80s hairband guy. That's not me anymore. It's a label I've dropped. But anyway, that's where you can get that flow state, is like doing that. And then of course, like even listening to or playing along, like the jam music and jazz are incredibly complex, like and I tell people that all the time. I'm like, I don't like jam bands. I like my songs compartmentalized into 3 minutes. That's the joke. but I recognize that their ability to like weave together patterns and change timing sequences and loop back on things that were in songs, that's an incredible skill,
But
way different.
is it skill, or is it they're making a lot of mistakes and doing a really good job of covering it up?
Yes. Can I say yes to that? I mean,
Yes, you can.
if for me, they could make as many mistakes as they want, and I probably wouldn't notice. But for someone like yourself, that's really, it's has an affinity for that kind of music, then you're probably going to be like, oh, that wasn't what they meant to do.
Oh, anyway. I think that music is in the moment, right? It's totally in the moment.
But make mistakes, just keep going.
What is it? Is it the fifth, Beethoven's fifth? No. I can't remember, but there is one classical piece that I think it's Beethoven's fifth. There's a part of it that just sounds like it's not right, but everybody plays it that way. And to me, it sounds like the note's wrong.
Jumps out. Wrong.
Yeah, but everybody plays it the way, so must be the way it's written. But to me, that one note sounds like it should be a different note.
Pull that back out.
Yes.
Yeah, I can't tell you much about that. Ask me about Journey and where they might have missed on some of their stuff. I might be able to help you.
Journey is my least favorite band. But we're supposed to be talking about happiness.
Well, I don't want to make you unhappy about talking about a band.
I know. Okay, so music makes you happy. Okay, so flow state, like for me, the thing I hate doing the most is getting on my elliptical. But about 5 minutes into it, there's a rhythm.
Yeah.
Right? You just got to get past the first 5 minutes. Yeah. And that flow state exists in everything you do.
Yeah, it can. I think we distract ourselves entirely too much. And that's one of the big,
if you don't give yourself enough time. But you could posit that when you're sitting there on your phone looking at YouTube videos or Instagram pictures, that you're in flow state because you can't stop doing it.
Yeah, you're engaged. Flow state has a little bit more. You're engaged in what's going on in front of you, and if you're interacting with it, then I would say yes. Like TV can induce flow state. Driving your car can induce flow state. Driving your car in Scotland on the wrong side of the road with a stick shift with a car that's too big for the road did not create flow state for me over the summer. I got better at it. Time. Video games create flow state.
How many times have you gotten in your car and driven someplace, and when you get there, you're like, I don't even remember driving here.
I don't remember how I got here.
Yeah.
I'm like, I hope I didn't take anybody out on the way here.
Yeah. Exactly. That does happen in the car a lot. Okay, go on. Sorry, I keep interrupting you because you're so fascinating.
Thank you. Thank you for apologizing and then flattering me selflessly. So I have to.
My husband says that's my superpower.
Like, how am I supposed to argue with you now after you just told me how amazing I am? Yeah, so that's flow state in a nutshell. And, it says about 20 minutes to get into it. And for people that we haven't talked about sports, but sports can start flow state too. And so it's that challenge and ability piece. And Michael Jordan, I don't know if you've heard of him.
No, never. I have no idea who that is.
He's a basketball player. He's pretty good.
What's basketball? No.
It's an English sport. That's my attempt at an English accent. Anyway, he called it being in the zone. And so a lot of people have heard that. And so it's that thing of like, you lose track of time. You're not thinking about what you're doing. You're not aware of your breathing. You're not aware of what you're doing necessarily. You're just immersed in what's happening. And again, at the time, you're not like, oh, I feel happy because of this, because you're just so locked into what's going on. And then in retrospect, you're like, oh, wow, that was what I just did. That was really cool. Like that was a really nice moment of being in the flow channel.
But having those moments, that's important for overall happiness.
Yeah. I mean, it's one of the 5 domains, and so the more that you can trigger those moments of allowing you to go deep, I mean, it's also linked to one of the other parts of that PERMA model of like mastery and achievement. Like, I don't know that anybody that's conquered the world by being great at email, the thing that, and we can be distracted by that all day, and the dings on our phone and the little messages and the things that sometimes where our greatness comes from is like when we can really get immersed in something and really turn off distraction and really put all of our energy and effort towards something. And then it's also serving us as becoming better at mastering something and growth and development and achievement.
I have a girlfriend who created an entire business model around sorting other people's email.
Sorting other people's email.
Yeah, she makes it easier. She makes it email more manageable for people.
I don't know if I want other people seeing all the things I subscribe to.
I'm really good at unsubscribing. Okay, so you work with businesses, and this for the most part, folks listening to this podcast are solopreneurs, micropreneurs, nano influencers, small people. So how can somebody take these broad concepts, which we haven't even dug into yet, these broad concepts that you offer, and use them in their own solopreneur business? Maybe you should go over your broad concepts first and then.
Well, broad concepts, I would say the broadest concept is to not ignore happiness as a precursor to you being successful.
Oh, and do you know how important that is in the workplace?
Oh yeah, totally. And there's a million layers that we can pick apart of that, right? Like psychological safety is important, physical safety is important, trust is important. They're all foundational to kind of like moving together and working together as a team. And moving away from our natural tendency to be worried about us versus us being worried about the performance of a group of people and the end result for this entire group of people. That's exceptional. And what I mean by saying exceptional is it's the exception. Like when people can do that and they can really work together really well. And it's not always perfect. It's not always easy. It's not absent of conflict. But that's where you can achieve a lot more things by working together, honoring the differences of people, leaning into different strengths, being vulnerable about your own weaknesses. So there's a lot there for that. Now, back that away, that's working in a larger workplace of at least, call it more than 2 people, 3 people, 5 people, right? You're talking about micro, nano, and smaller organizations, and I'm a solo entrepreneur. It's been shown the causality between happiness and success has been shown. And what's really cool about it is most people will say, I'll be happy when I'm successful, right? So, and the science has said, be successful, be happy first, and you have more of a likelihood of being, be happy first, and you'll have more of a likelihood of being successful. And I don't mean happy like, haha, elation, joy, fun all the time, like leaning into some of those hard parts of happiness that we talked about. And then honoring the fact that like there's 3 elements that they really point out that are important. Having optimism for the future. That's one important piece for this. Having great social networks, and so especially people like, me, that I'm operating in a vacuum, I'm working by myself a lot, like I need to have my social support network to provide things to me that you could maybe get in a larger workplace. And then also being engaged in the work you're doing and believing that it's going to make a difference, and that you really just invest yourself into those things. So and micro and nano influencers and entrepreneurs can do all those things.
Even solopreneurs have to interact with other people too. So let's talk about grumpy people. How can somebody work, I don't want to say work with, but how can someone deal with a grumpy person if they have to work with them? And work isn't the right word for solopreneur, but you know what I'm saying.
Navigate.
Yeah. Navigate. Yeah. How do you navigate a grumpy person?
Kandas, do you have someone specific in mind? And if so, please use their full name.
No, I do not. No, I do not actually, because I surround myself with groovy people. I don't, if somebody drains me, I figure out how to get rid of them.
Yeah, I do too.
I'm good at happiness. So I'm just asking you questions from the perspective of what I do right.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that you did right was you excise those people from your life, right? Like, and you have to either do that. And, the science says 2 things. Work on those relationships that are hard. Honor that some of the hardest relationships in your life are also some of the people that are closest to you. It could be a family member, it could be a colleague, it could be, whatever, a partner or spouse.
I've been married for 25 years.
Yeah.
That's not easy.
No, he's already said that.
It's easier to get divorced than it is to stay married.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's work. I mean,
and that's relationships in general. Like the framing around this that I use sometimes is like one of the coolest things about, people and relationships is they can have such an incredible life enhancing aspect for you, for your own happiness. And the other part is the hardest part of sharing time on this earth is that you have to share it with other people on this planet. And they're all crazy, we're all normal,
we're on the topic. So I'm going to tell the story.
Oh, here we go.
All right. I have an affinity to pink wigs. I like wearing pink wigs. I don't know why. And it drives my husband crazy. He does not like it when I'm wearing them in public. He doesn't like to go with me when I have a pink wig on. And he's like, why do you wear that wig? I'm like, because it makes me happy. Maybe it's because it annoys him. I don't know. But, sometimes you just have to do silly things to find a little silliness. I mean, I lost my hair because of cancer, right? Yeah. And my hair never grew back. So why over it? Why not
Yeah.
just make it fun? Right?
Why not?
You know?
And as the win-win, I don't know if I'm going to put this in category of win-win. I was going to say as a win-win, you also get to irritate your partner.
Yeah.
I don't
And
know if
it's
that's a
fun.
win-win.
It's fun.
That sounds like win-lose or win-push at best,
Do you know what's even crazier is he's my business partner.
Oh, yeah.
So we started our business like 2 months after we got married.
Yeah.
And then we had a kid like 9 months later, right? So we have never not been
Like together.
business partners, like parents, like, yeah, it's our life. Our 20 life for 25 years has been business partners, parents, married, right?
I think my expression of gratitude today on the show is that is not my life.
But okay, so this is you're the happiness expert, but I have been living a happy life forever, right? So the thing is, we just figure out how to fill each other's gaps. And that's my advice. If you want to be happy and you've got somebody in your life that, is polarizing, well, magnets attract or they push away. So, figure out how to make that fit, right? Figure out how to make it fit. Fill each other's gaps.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's incredibly hard. I think people are so complex and you have to honor that. You have to honor it in yourself too, that you're complex and that you're not a match for everybody. And that's really hard for me because like I have pleaser tendencies, like a desire to be liked by all people. And
you're not going to. It's impossible.
Candace, don't tell me that. I just told you that I want to be liked by everybody.
Well, okay. So at the very beginning, when I asked you what's happiness, you said it's different for different people. And then we talked about success a little bit. And my position is that success is different for everybody. I consider myself highly successful and others wouldn't because I'm not a millionaire. Right. But I also have no debt. I'm happy as peaches, so I consider myself extremely successful. I don't need to be a millionaire to have money and travel the world to have happiness and to feel successful. I just need to be content with what I have. So contentment, you just pointed at me.
Yeah,
take it away.
You said the word contentment. Can I close the loop on the tough relationships real quick? Because I think it is important. It's something that comes up for people a lot.
But see, if you close the loop, then it's closed for me. No, I'm kidding. Go ahead. Close it.
I lost my train of thought.
I did it to you.
You have to. This is a pattern for you, isn't it? You have to work on those toxic relationships. And sometimes you have to honor the fact that they're not going to change. And you either have to honor they're not going to change and you can choose to leave those people in your life, or you can honor that it's not going to change. And then you have to get them out of your life.
Yeah.
And for me, toxic relationships, it's so much addition by subtraction, And so I think you said some really good things, and it's super hard. Like if it's a sibling, if it's a parent, if it's a coworker, if whatever that is, neighbor.
Well, it's like when you have a family reunion, and especially in the last 10 years, politics have been so polarizing.
Oh, yeah.
You just they walk in the door, no politics. Don't talk about politics. Mm-hmm. We're not talking about politics today. And then you can enjoy each other.
Yes.
Yeah. Because
family it can be super shallow though, which is really unfortunate.
Well, if you take away the thing that is divisive, you remember all the things that you like about each other.
Okay, I love that.
Yeah. Just because the divisive shit gets in the way, and I don't normally swear on my show, but I'm going to today. It gets in the way. The divisive shit gets in the way, and when you just say we're not doing that today, let's play cards, let's play croquet, let's play horseshoes or whatever, and let's just have a good time. And you're laughing and you're having a good time,
which can completely be ruined by conversations about stuff that are divisive, right?
Yeah.
And divisive is divide, and divide is ridiculous, and it's manipulation, right? It's something that's used to kind of separate us from each other to give power to other people. I think it's dumb.
Because everybody just wants to be happy. Everybody wants to be happy, and their definition is different than yours.
Yeah. And there are tons of, yes. I mean, everybody's definition is really different, and everyone's belief of how we get to those things, those level of happiness and success and satisfaction and your word contentment is different for all of us, right? And that's what's amazing about what you said was we start the conversation about politics. We're divided and we hate each other. Once we just got together to get together to enjoy each other. Now we hate each other.
Yeah.
Instead of sitting down across from that person, playing cards, having fun, finding joy, finding the commonalities, and realizing that there's just a political differentiation in how we view the world and how we believe that politics can serve people the best.
Yeah.
And
we liked each other before the politics got involved.
Yeah.
So why don't
or we did, or we didn't,
or we didn't? Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway.
So you were talking about contentment. That's where we
Well, contentment and the other word that you used was suffering. And whenever I hear the word suffering, I always think of the Dalai Lama. And I just think that those of us that live in Western culture could learn a lot from that Eastern tradition of Buddhism about the elimination of suffering, because that's the whole religion of Buddhism, is to eliminate suffering.
Yeah. And I was just reading, do you know who Dan Harris is, 10% Happier?
No.
His book is pretty interesting. He's a longtime news anchor, and he's really good. He's really articulate. He's been at the peak of news anchoring and TV and all that sort of stuff. And he was a non-believer in meditation, and it took him a long time to come around to it being a really valuable tool for him. And he talked about even the distinction between some of the Buddhist, or is it Sanskrit? Is that the word? No. Is it Hindu?
Sanskrit would be Hindu.
Hindu, yeah. So the word that's suffering is a occasionally a misinterpretation of what it really means. Like we think suffering like agony and depression and those things. And he says, if you can reframe it around, it's what Thich Nhat Hanh has to say about like impermanence, that the things that are providing us joy now, or even the things that are providing us pain now, are likely going away. And where we find suffering is because the thing that was bringing us joy went away, or the thing that wasn't here before came in and caused suffering.
Have you ever been with a woman who gave birth? Do you have children?
No children.
Okay. So when a woman gives birth, she is in agonizing pain.
Mm-hmm.
And the minute that child is placed on her chest, all of that is gone.
Okay.
That's happiness.
Yeah. The absence of suffering, right? The removal of suffering.
Yeah.
The joke that he uses in the book is there's a guy standing next to a wall just banging his head repeatedly on the wall, just banging, banging, banging. The guy says, "Why are you doing that?" He says, "Because it feels so good when I stop."
Oh, that's awful. That's terrible, but it's true.
You get it, right? I mean,
yeah. No, I get it. Yeah, I get it. Wow. Yeah. I wonder if we're going down a well now, but I wonder if that's why people cut themselves. I don't know. I mean, I don't know about. Yeah, I don't know about the psychology behind the cutting. Yeah, interesting.
My work is, like the scale of -10 of deep suffering. That's the original psychology and psychoses. The world of flourishing, +10. I'm primarily dealing with people on the positive side of 0. They may dip down into the negative spots, but I don't deal with those sort of traumatic things.
Well, let's shift focus, because why talk about something depressing like cutting?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Okay. So what is Focus on the 40? What do you do?
Well, so what Focus on the 40 is.
Don't you think we should have started with that question?
I'm sure you can cut and paste this stuff together
with
technology.
No, I'm into organic. I am totally into organic.
Okay. Organic food? Are we going on another topic, a tangent, or what's going on here?
Organic conversations.
Oh, gotcha. So Focus on the 40 as a thing is taken from the research in positive psychology that basically says 40% of our happiness is available to us through intentional action. And so that's why I want people to focus on that part. People get distracted by where they think happiness really lies. They're kind of misled. And so that's why it's called Focus on the 40. What it is in action for me as the brand for my company is doing presentations at conferences, talking about kind of, typically I'm in front of audiences of people that are employed somewhere. So I talk about, hey, listen, like work is an incredible opportunity to make us happy. And work is also hard, and that's okay, and if you can understand why it doesn't feel good at times, why change doesn't feel good, and what stress is, what the message is behind stress, and that growth is important, but growth doesn't always feel good in the moment, like it's clunky. That's the framing from the stage from, conference. And then that usually turns into, okay, let's talk about how to get your team of people to all work together, and how to make it easier, and how to be authentic at work, and how to be vulnerable at work, and how to be strong at work, and all those sort of things, how to build trust.
Have you seen the research that comes out of Europe that compares an American worker to a European worker? Americans will define themselves by what they do,
Mm-hmm.
and Europeans define themselves by what they enjoy.
What they enjoy. I like that.
Yeah. So do you want to, I mean, you obviously you didn't know the study, but do you want to talk about that?
Well,
but how can, I would think that defining yourself by what you enjoy rather than what you do for money that's intentional and focusing on the 40.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think a lot of it depends on so one piece of that jumps to mind is, if we as a society here in the United States define ourselves by being successful, you talked about it, like this dissonance between what different definitions of success can look like. Is it based on money? Is it based on impact? Is it based on the lifestyle it affords for you? Is it based on the freedom it gives you? What are all those things? And lately I've been talking about my own career as like overlapping Venn diagrams. Venn diagrams are coming back like QR codes. I'm really happy for both of them to have such a renaissance. But like, I want to make really great money doing what I do. I want to have really big impact doing what I do. And I want to have a really good life. And that really good life means that I have time and freedom and money to do things and resources to live a good experience. Those can get out of balance, right? Like, and so if you're just really focused on just the money or just the impact, then maybe you're working for a nonprofit and you're broke, or if you just focus on having a good life, then that can take away from other stuff. Fine. And so I think for everybody, it's like this, is this a job? Is it a career? Is it a calling? And what's important in that definition for you? For me, this is a calling. So my definition of for me, success is embedded in impact, not just in money. And so I think that we bring that forward in our society. So I would say it's a cultural differentiator, right? I was just in Denmark this summer, and I went to Denmark on purpose because it's the second happiest place in the world. And I was like, well, let me go to.
I don't think anybody goes someplace not on purpose. Like, did you get on an airplane expecting to end up in England and then you on purpose went to Denmark? Dude.
Again, this is where you distracted me again. And this is where you now have
hey,
to say something.
Anthony, why did you go to Denmark?
No, you're supposed to say something really flattering here so that I can use my bio. And then we can move on.
Anthony, I really admire the fact that you went to Denmark. Tell me about that trip.
I'm being manipulated and I still like it. Yeah, so I went to Denmark intentionally. And but it was, and I was talking to people, as I went there, I was kind of reading up on that World Happiness Report that talks about that. And Danish people work about 37 hours a week on average. They have really good social security networks out there as far as social welfare. It's really easy to change jobs. And there's not that much of an identity around.
Is it too political to say they also have health insurance?
No, it's not too political.
Is that too political?
I will tell you, it's a highly socialized nation, right? They pay high taxes, but they pay high taxes and they reinvest those taxes so that everyone has the basics of Maslow's hierarchy covered. Like you don't have to worry about food safety, shelter, water, basic income, healthcare, education. They even pay you a stipend if you go back to college or back to university. It's not enough to live on long term. It's enough to get by if you have to just kind of scrape by for as you're working on the next thing.
Most college students barely make enough money to live on anyway. So unless mommy and daddy are covering the bills. I'm speaking from my child is in grad school right now. I know how much she earns, and I know how much mommy and daddy have to supplement.
Is this turning into a political rant about the affordability?
No, I try not to be political. But it's Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Sure. You could posit that happiness, when all your needs are met, everybody's happy. Well, if your society is angry at each other all the time, maybe there are certain needs that aren't being met. And what can we do to do that? What can we do to alleviate that? So I'll go back to Denmark. I want to hear more about how awesome Denmark is.
Yeah, I just have to react to that point.
Okay.
Why people are so unhappy. I think that's intentional.
You think people are unhappy intentionally?
I think there's a machine in place to try to make us unhappy and keep us divided and keep us fighting and keep us disconnected.
Dude.
Yeah, that's the political machine. That's what I mean by that. That's what I think of the two-party system and all that.
Yeah.
It's the conversation that you're having about cards.
Yeah.
So, back to Denmark, but if you're only working 37 hours a week and you have the basics covered and, your health is kind of like you can take care of your basics of health, I think it creates a lot of freedom and time and space and headspace to say, and now what do I do with the rest of my time in my week? Because I'm not working 50 hours a week. I'm not working 3 jobs. I'm not, and so they're also, um, it's culturally sort of taboo to be braggadocious over there, to be materialistic over there. So I think it makes it easier to be like, enough money is enough money. I don't need the bigger boat. I don't need the fancier car, those sort of things. And they get taxed heavily anyway on luxury items and things like that.
Well, and don't a lot of people in Denmark ride bikes? Like they have very few cars, more more transportation is more bicycle.
Yeah. And that was also why I went there. I went on a big bike tour around the island of Shaolin.
Oh, fun.
Yeah, it's bike friendly, pedestrian friendly. It's awesome.
I cannot remember the name of the YouTube channel, but my husband and I really enjoy watching this YouTube channel that talks about how cities are designed and the best run cities. By the time the show airs, so check the show notes, listener, for a link, because it's a very interesting YouTube channel. But the guy used to live he grew up he's from Canada, and he moved to Denmark because he wanted to raise his children in Copenhagen. And it's, they don't own a car. They ride their bikes everywhere. The kids ride their bikes to school alone without parents. It's just a very safe place to live. And it snows there.
Oh, yeah.
And they figured out how to ride your bike in the snow.
They plow the bike lanes before they plow the roads.
It's just, it's crazy. Cool. What are some of the other really cool things that you found out that you liked about Denmark?
I mean, cool things about it. Well, one, they celebrate summer like nobody's business, right? I mean, it's on the North Sea, and so they get these brutal winters, and so they're really good at, everybody at this point has heard the term hygge, about coziness, and how to do that, and how to essentially take these long winter nights and make them as joy-filled as possible, and to lean into that. I think one of the really cool things about Danish people is that but that means they go crazy for summer. So we were out there, it was like, mid 60s. It was not what I would call warm. It was spring weather back here for most places in the United States, and they were swimming in the North Sea. I mean, and the North Sea is not warm.
Don't you live in Oregon?
I live in Oregon, yeah.
So when I was little, I lived in Washington State, and man, when it was high 60s, I was like, Mom, can I put on shorts?
Yeah. I mean, it doesn't take much and I live on the dry side, live on the desert side, so we get way more sun over here. Just like,
yeah. I always forget that there's that part of Oregon.
Oh yeah, it's super. It's most of these two states up here, Washington and Oregon. They're both east of the Cascades. It's super dry.
Yeah.
It's desert. But I think the other cool thing about Danish people that I think is a focus on the 40, sort of like it fits in with the mantra of they are involved in about 2.8 social groups per person. So they're in societies and clubs and game groups and activities. They're all social, and that social piece is really good for the human brain.
Well, do you know what that number is for the United States?
I don't know. It would be a really interesting thing to know, because there's being good research, and I haven't looked at it in a while, about just the national decline in civic engagement in general. And I would call civic engagement a combination of like people belong to less churches than they did before. People don't volunteer for organizations as much as they used to. They're not engaged in many activities. We've become like this more like closed off society versus having these great, like, I'll give an example. Like, I play hockey here in the winter. It is fantastic. We have a great program here. I play terrible hockey, and that's okay. But it is a mixing pot of all aspects of society. So back to your kind of concept about like, you walked into my house to come play games. We talked politics, and then you immediately walked out of my house and we didn't play games. If we would have walked in and we would have played games, we could have eventually talked about politics. And I think that we need
you're probably right. Yeah.
We need those melting pots. We need those places where I can be like, you believe different things from me, but I know you're a good person. And so I can find more common ground between those, in those situations, versus just, oh, you're a D or an R, like that. We're going to make all our decisions about each other based on that. I think it's just foolish.
Maybe that's another reason why I don't like the DISC assessment or any of those assessments, because I don't like people putting me in a bucket. Right? I don't even put in a bucket. So, but the D and the R, I know you were talking about politics, and the DISC assessment is personality, but
Let me guess, you're a D.
How did you know?
I
How
mean,
did you figure that out?
if there was an R for rebel, you would be that one, and it would be an extra capitalized R with a giant font.
Not only am I a D, I'm also a Capricorn.
I got, oh,
And I got two, yeah. But are there any Capricorns who aren't Ds? I mean, I don't know. Probably. And I don't even really think astrology is real. I just know. I'm not really big into astrology. Okay, so let's get back to the 40. Okay. How do we do it? How do we focus? How do we stay intentional on our happiness? How do we not let the 60% bullshit get in the way?
Well, let's talk about, by the way, you've used 3 cuss words today, and so I'm going to need you to put a quarter in the cuss jar like my mom used to have to do.
Okay. All right, I will.
And that jar was full.
I'll 75 cents in the cuss jar. That's going to buy me what, half a pack of gum?
I don't know. We probably need to round that up for inflation. So $5 each. I don't know. I think the one thing that people put a lot of influence on, focus on the 40, the breakdown is 40% intentional action. So stuff that's in your control to do these things, right? 10% is life circumstance. And that means like, I'll be happy when I make more money. I'll be happy when I get a new house. I'll be happy when I get married. I'll be happy when I get divorced. I'll be happy when I have kids. I'll be happy when the kids get out of the house. I'll be happy when my kids call me. Be happy when my kids will quit calling me. Whatever those things are. And we put this outsized influence on thinking that people in different circumstances are happier than us because of things like, and what we know, we have these massive data sets of human happiness around the world. We know where the happiest people live, and we know what makes them so happy. And this is the really cool work that came out from Dan Buettner and Blue Zones. It was the second study they did. And the World Happiness Report kind of is kind of what he was using, or I think what he was using to determine that. And what we know about people that are super happy is that they're pretty social. Now, I don't mean that you have to be an extrovert, right? Like if you only have 3 best friends and they're the only people you want, that's great. Just be social with those people, and that's really valuable. You should move a lot. Moving is really good for you. Moving is really good for your happiness. Moving is really good for engaging your brain in different ways.
Do you mean like exercise or walking or?
It doesn't have to be intense exercise. Like, I don't think people need to get lost in the fact that it's like, I don't need you to go run a 5K. That you'll be happier and you'll be healthier long term if you're moving. And that just means like people in Okinawa are some of the longest living people in the world. And the reason that they're so long living is they're part of social groups, right? They have to get up out of their bed.
The bicycles in Denmark.
Yeah, same, right? It's a little bit of movement. And Denmark is generally flat, right? So it's not like they're powering up these massive hills. Same thing with Okinawans. They have public transit over there, and public transit can actually be better than cars because you have to at least walk to public transit, so you get some like just movement from that. But they tend to their gardens every day. They eat of really diverse foods. They like a diverse mix of foods every day. They eat a lot of different things, and little bits of them. And they're very social. They're always part of some group or some engagement or something, right? That's great for the human brain. That's really great to have that. And so that, I just don't want people to get too focused on the things that they think will make them happy, because we habituate to the things that make us happy, and we habituate more quickly to good things than we do negative things. And we habituate to some things quicker than others. What I mean by that is like we habituate to the new thing, but we don't habituate to new experiences that we have, and we can relive those sort of things. And so
cigarettes, alcohol, porn, those are 3 things that give you immediate happiness, but then make you feel guilty later. I don't know. So by habituating, how do we make sure that the habits that we are moving towards are the ones that will be positive in the long run?
Sure. I wasn't going to bring up cigarettes, porn, or what was the other one?
Alcohol.
Or alcohol.
It's my show. I can do whatever the heck I want.
You can. Good job. You just avoided another curse jar pun. Caught yourself. You're like, H-double hockey sticks. Don't say it. So yeah, I think so much of it is intentional action. So it's just like living in, and I think choice in community is really important, and choices in like when you think about your happiness, it's you have to think about it at different scales. Like, what's going to make me happy right now? Bacon. If I choose bacon right now, every single time I think about bacon, I'm not going to live a long and happy, healthy life, most likely, right? So it's about like these little things that you can do to trigger happiness in the moment, things that you can trigger happiness that will last for a while, that will come forward, like that, or eases suffering and pain. and then things that will create happiness over time, that allow you to do different things. Like if you're thinking about, oh, I'll be happy when I get my next degree because it will allow me to get the next job, and I really want to move into a different type of role I'm doing. Cool, that's great. Like understand why you're going after those things and what the value add is perceived in your life. But don't be focused on, I'll be happy when I get the next house. I'll be happy when and I'm also not saying like I feel like I poo-poo in this second, talking about this sort of stuff, like talking about materialism a lot, right? And we do habituate to things that are material. You can think about why those things will make you happy and be thoughtful about that. So example, I have a nice TV. I'm in my workspace right now and I have a nice TV in my condo. And the TV by myself can provide some happiness. I can hit flow state. I can do things I can enjoy. I can watch comedy shows. Those can have positive elements. Watching my TV for 8 hours a day, probably not great for me. Watching on TV,
okay, every once in a while you can binge an entire series of shows that just as long as you don't do it every day.
Thank you. I'm not putting any absolutes on this. It's more of just like patterns over time, right? Now, the TV in my house can also be a tool for more engagement with other people. So for example, last weekend, I play hockey. I have other people in my life that enjoy hockey. We watched a hockey game together. I made food. They came to my house. We hung out. We had some alcohol. Thanks for judging me, Candace.
I'm so judging you.
And we shared food together. So there's this neurochemical cocktail going on.
Was there bacon involved? Bacon and booze?
Oh, was there bacon? Over there, was there sausage? There's probably pork product. There's cheese. Cheese makes me happy. But so the TV is a materialistic thing, but it was used as a mechanism to bring other people in my life and have happiness and do things together with other people. Awesome. Like a house. My sister, the example I love to use with my sister is she has 2 daughters. One, both of them with sort of special needs. One is on the autism spectrum. One has anxiety issues. One is a 6-year-old boy, and anything that 6-year-old boy touches that can be thrown will be thrown. He's always at volume 20. They have 2 dogs and a husband, and he's kind of boring, and that's fine. But they all lived in a 900 square foot house, right? And so when they invested in getting a different house with a play space in the basement and individual rooms for all the people to go off and do their things, it made them happier overall. So if you can understand the delta between the 900 square foot house and the 1700 square, whatever that is, and just understand why that can provide more comfort for everybody, fine.
Yeah. Well, along the lines of the house, when my husband and I got married, we bought a 900 square foot house. Yep. And then we got pregnant very quickly. And when our daughter hit 4, we just assumed that we had to upsize, right? We just made the assumption that we couldn't live in a 900 square foot house with our 4-year-old kids. And so we bought another house, and then the economy tanked. We bought that
upside down in our house.
Yeah. And it became stressful. And the true story is that we bought a house we probably didn't have to buy because we could have made the 900 square foot house work for us. I'm not saying that your friends, they absolutely needed a bigger house. You can't have 4 kids in a 900 square foot house, but shoot, I just lost my train of thought. You made the house.
Wait, this is where I'm supposed to apologize and then shamelessly flatter you.
Yes.
You have great taste in posters.
Thank you. It's art. It's all art. There is one poster, but it's all art. Yeah. And every single piece of art has a story behind it.
Would you like to tell us all?
No, because I've gone down that well before. I will say, since we were because I know you're going to appreciate this. The last show I binge watched was Bad Batch. It's a cartoon about Star Wars.
I know what that is.
Yeah, I binged it. I admit it. I freely admit that I binged a cartoon. I freely admit it, but it was really good. Really, really good.
And today on the Gratitude Geek Podcast, she hath been forgiven.
Thank you. Yeah. Okay, so we need to wrap. Oh God, I hate it when I'm having such a good conversation with somebody and then I look at the clock and I'm like, I'm so happy I got to spend this time with you today, rather than I hate that I looked at the clock and it's time to wrap up. But I want to interweave gratitude and happiness.
Sure.
Dig into it.
Well, so the process behind how we habituate to the things that we are making us happy now. And remember, our brain says, cool, I'm glad it's making you happy now. I'm not going to make you feel good about that. forever. I want you to go work on the next thing, and I want you to focus on the next thing because that's perceived to be good for your survival. Those moments can be fleeting. Now we can intercept those things. We can understand that comes from ancestral wiring in our brains. It comes from like the old cave people days, and we can combat that. We can recognize that that's something that we can. We don't have to listen to that. We don't have to let those things fade. And what I mean by that is that gratitude is a mindset. It's a character strength, and I'll share some tools on that with everybody. And gratitude is also an activity you can do. And so every day on my phone, my alarm goes off at 12:34 p.m. We'll have a little notification that pops up on my phone. It says 1, 2, 3, 4. And the activity is called 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So every day at 12:34 p.m., I say 5 things I'm grateful for. And what you're doing is your brain is malleable. Your neural pathways can be moved through or changed through neuroplasticity. And so neurons that fire together, wire together, and you're rewiring how your brain operates. And you're doing it really quickly with this activity to say 5 things I'm grateful for. Like, I'm grateful for a fun podcast. I'm grateful to be looking over Candace's shoulder and thinking about Star Wars. That's fun stuff that I enjoy in my life. I'm grateful for all the stuff that I know about human happiness. It's been super valuable for me in my life. I'm grateful that I have a full belly because I just ate lunch. That's something that a lot of people don't have. I'm grateful that I'm safe. And if you can, the more you can express gratitude for the things that you have in your life right now, it's easier than choosing. It's better for you than being thoughtful about what you'll be happy for when you get it. So more you can have like contentment around what you have already versus what you're chasing, it can add to your happiness. And what I would share with the listeners also is that you can look at where gratitude is for you, and you can elevate the character strength of gratitude. They've done a lot of research into these 24 character strengths. Gratitude for me is in my top 5. It's real easy for me to be grateful. I feel really grateful and fortunate for the life that I have. I've been responsible for crafting that life, but I've also been really lucky, and I know that. And so you can elevate that character strength of gratitude. You can take the assessment, you can figure out where you are, and then you can actively work on elevating your gratitude, and you're rewiring your brain, and you can be happier because of that.
I got a little choked up when you were talking about that.
I'm happy to hear that.
Yeah, it was, choked up in a good way, because I think that's the most profound gratitude practice anyone's ever talked about on this show.
Super simple. And
there's a timer going into my phone starting today. 5 things I'm grateful for. Yeah, that anybody can do that. And you don't have to write. A lot of folks are like, I have to write it in a gratitude journal. I have to get a gratitude journal. I have to find an app for that. No, you just say them out loud.
Yeah. And you don't have to do it every day. And it doesn't have to be, don't think it has to be profound things to be grateful for.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm grateful for my health.
I am wearing some really groovy socks right now that are keeping my toes and my feet nice and cozy warm. I love these socks. Every time I put them on, I'm like, I'm wearing clouds on my feet. I'm so grateful for these socks, and I'm grateful that my husband gave them to me, right? That's 2 things I'm grateful for.
Candace, when you take the character assessment, I'm going to be really surprised if gratitude isn't really towards the top.
Well, I am the gratitude geek.
And if there was a secondary subset for gratitude.
Okay, wait, hold on. What is this character assessment? How do we access it?
I'll send you a link in the show notes,
okay.
So you can pop it in there. It's through an organization called Via Character. So it's the Values in Action character. Values in Action is the name of the group, and they have these really great free assessment tools on this stuff, and it's really powerful. I mean, you can reshift these character strengths for yourself.
Awesome. So check the show notes, guys. They'll be in the show notes.
Yeah, for sure.
Wow. Okay, you're a solopreneur. You've got this business.
Yeah.
I don't think you've written a book. Have you written a book?
I've written a workbook. I've written multiple workbooks, and they're usually more like self-paced activity guides. I'm in the process of finishing a book.
Okay.
It's more of a traditional book, but all of my books are about it's not just information, it's information that has to be turned into application. So I want you to be able to say, I learned something, now how do I use this thing?
Yeah.
So they all take that approach.
I like that.
Yeah.
So, but in order for you to get paid, you have to promote yourself. You have to market. So what is your favorite marketing tool, tip, or technique?
I mean, I really do enjoy podcasting, and I do enjoy being on here because it just gives me a chance to rethink about the stuff that I'm doing and to hear about what's something that somebody else needs out of this information that I have, this knowledge and expertise that I have. Because I don't want to just have this knowledge and expertise in a vacuum. So I like sharing with other people. So that podcasting is really fun. I would say the other thing it is a marketing tool, is that when I'm standing on a conference stage, I'm usually getting paid. I'm usually getting paid pretty well to do that. But I'm also standing up there saying, here's something for you today as an individual in front of me, but I'm also trying to tell you that you should also use me in your workplace to help ease the pains that come from workplace settings. So, I love being on stages. And so like getting paid to do that as a marketing tool for the rest of my business is a wonderful thing. And, because I'm always, anytime somebody offers to hand me a microphone, I'm probably going to say yes. And so I'm performing improv tomorrow night. I'm in a stand-up comedy group, all those sort of things. So anytime that I can be, I told you at the beginning of the show, that attention-seeking behavior is.
Well, I love, you said 2.5, you have to belong to 2.8 or 3.8 social groups.
Yeah.
You do your stand-up or your improv, you've got your hockey, you've got the people that you network. I mean, I network with a lot of coaches and speakers and podcasters because that's the people I enjoy being around. Right. So, you've got that now. I mean, you probably have more than 4 of those networks that you interact with. So obviously that's why you're happy.
Yeah, there's an element of extroversion there too. I mean, it feeds that beast as well. And I have to learn to be happier as in the quiet times in between, but if I have a bias towards action, that's for sure.
Yeah. So podcast guests don't normally get paid. So you're doing this free as a way to just sprinkle some stuff around, happiness around, and which is awesome. And that's why I host the show, because I like meeting people like you who sprinkle goodness around, right? The show is about the mission of the show is to spread gratitude, sow seeds of appreciation, and harvest a bounty of generosity and kindness. Well, you've done all that today.
People can find me at Anthony Poponi.
Oh, there you go. Yeah. Well, so what else would you like to? Is there anything I didn't ask you that you'd like to answer?
I think gratitude is a wonderful tool. Don't get lost in toxic positivity.
That's true. It can be toxic.
Be grateful for things and be grateful for when hard things go away, and realize that the hard stuff is real. Negative emotions are okay. Grief is okay. Suffering is okay to a point. And feel good when you feel good. Feel bad when you feel bad. Do what you can to take that, focus on the 40 effort to say, what's the good stuff in my life and how do I get more of it? What's the bad stuff in my life and how do I get rid of it? And you're never going to get rid of it entirely, but how do you minimize those moments of suffering and not repeat those patterns?
Well, and at 12:34 every day, say out loud 5 things you're grateful for.
Yeah, do it really loud, especially if you're driving with the windows down or in public. It's great.
And sing it like a rapper.
You would do it as jazz
or jazz. Sing it jazz style. That's true. All right. So this is my final question for you, and it's my favorite question. It's your moment of gratitude. For whom or what are you most grateful?
Ooh, I am surprisingly grateful for having some poverty in childhood, because it's made me grateful for all the things I have, and it's made me it's driven me to be very service oriented and to give back to the world. So I'm really grateful for people that took chances on me and gave me the opportunities to get where I'm at today, and that had a higher belief system in me and who I was than whatever that little kid was in poverty.
Thanks for tuning in to Gratitude Geek, where we help DIY marketers attract raving fans and repeat buyers. Don't forget to check out the show notes at gratitudegeek.com for links to all the resources mentioned in this episode. If you enjoyed it, please leave a review on your favorite podcast platform. Our theme music is by Rev Brock and Solely. I'm Kandas Rodarte, reminding you that gratitude is like manure. It's just a pile of poo until you spread it around. Stay groovy, my friends.
Stay groovy, my friends.